It's 6 o'clock in the morning. I've managed about an hour's sleep on my brother's floor, but as you can see from this picture, I'm very clearly raring to go. First things first though, I've recently been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and I have to test my blood sugars 3 times a day, as well as taking 2 types of medication with breakfast and dinner. My bloods are good and the pills, which I can't swallow whole, it's an autistic trait I'm told, are cut up and taken with my not at home breakfast of a banana. You hate that. 1 Weetabix, other cereal are available, is sufficient when I'm at home, but the milk's not easy to transport. Outside it's wet. My brother lives in Reading, which is not the reason it's wet, but I can see why you might think that. And it's still a bit of a trek to our destination. So I stomp about a bit, and this is he, my younger brother Ben, finally wakes up at 8. He's also raring to go because today we are off to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in North London to watch the North London Derby. Which is why this will be one of the only times you see me in a Spurs shirt. I've been a supporter for most of my 50 plus years, and we try to get to a game when we can. It's not very often, unfortunately, but I rarely pull a shirt on in public. These days, the abuse just isn't worth it. Finally, we're ready, and we are off. As you can see, I'm full of enthusiasm and loving the wet weather, but as an autistic man of a certain age, days like these aren't always the easiest to manoeuvre. The noise, the crowds, the anxiety levels are through the roof. But I try not to let that stop me doing these things. If I did, I'd probably never leave the house. But today, I've surrounded myself with a small support network. Not only am I travelling with Ben, but we're meeting up with my son, Hector, massive Power Rangers fan and sometimes streamer, and my other son, Hector's best-ish friend, James. The rain still hasn't stopped, but we pile in the car nonetheless and set off for Amersham, there to catch the train into London. Not only does the rain get heavier in Buckinghamshire, but when we arrive in Amersham, and have paid for a day's parking of course, we discover that all trains out of the station have been cancelled. James, seen here behind me, seems to be taking it all in his stride, but honestly, this just adds to the already large pile, rapidly becoming something akin to a hill, of anxiety that I'm suffering from. A quick tour of Google, however, and Slough is suggested as a station from which to depart, not as an alternative destination, thank goodness. Obi-Wan Kenobi famously said of Mos Eisley that you would never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. Well, having grown up in and around Slough, Mr. Kenobi, I can confidently refute that. But at least the trains are running, and soon the Elizabeth line is whisking us off to Tottenham Court Road. Now, on a bit of a side note, this is Station Jim. Growing up, I thought it was an odd thing to have a stuffed dog on a railway platform, but I now know there's a story behind it. Now, of course, I'm not going to tell you what that is, because that's what Google's for. Go on, go and find out for yourselves. As I mentioned, Tottenham Court Road is our first port of call, and with well over 3.5 hours until kick-off, we split into 2 groups to kill the time. Hector and James take off with their friend Matt. Sadly, there's no footage of the mysterious Matthew, and I'm still unable to prove his existence. And Ben and I take a leisurely walk around the usual haunts of old London town. Finally, we reach my spiritual home. No, not that one. It is, in fact, Forbidden Planet, a place I've been visiting in one location or another for almost 40 years. I come here for comics, mostly of the Spider-Man variety. I was really tempted by that mask, I have to be honest. But mostly I come to be disappointed by the lack of Doctor Who merchandise. Come on, BBC. The Doctor Who fans out there want more. More merchandise, more episodes, more commitment to the show we love. Sorry, rant over. With still several hours to go after Forbidden Planet, we need a new destination, and so we board the tube. And don't look down. My vertigo makes this image a rare sight for me. I'm usually glued to the handrail, eyes fixed firmly on the ever-changing ads on the walls. Don't look down. A second side note, this is the face of a man regretting leaving his noise-cancelling headphones at home. The roar of the underground is often overstimulating and not really something I relish. Note to self, always pack the headphones. We arrive in Camden and make our way through its busy streets to our pub of choice, the Ice Wharf, where I test my bloods again and we partake of sustenance. Yeah, there's Ben looking just as enthusiastic and full of beans as me. Before we then head out onto the streets again, this time to scout out some Doctor Who filming locations. You see, Camden featured in the 14th Doctor episode, The Star Beast. I'm pretty sure the TARDIS landed just over there somewhere. And it really could again if the BBC would make an effort to make more episodes. And then it's time. No, not to join E17, but to head to the home of music, boxing, and very occasionally a little bit of football, the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It is, as I said right back at the beginning, North London Derby Day, and so the police naturally are out in force. But as we make our way from Seven Sisters along the high road, we don't see any trouble. Just a lot of positive Spurs fans hoping a new manager, it's his first game in charge after a really poor season so far, we're hoping that he will turn our fortunes around. The stadium seems to grow larger as we get closer, which I think is probably how spatial dimensions work, isn't it? And then suddenly we're there, inside, and the game is about to start. The ground is packed, the noise is deafening, and the anxiety, which has been building to mountain-sized all day, is only exacerbated by the tense atmosphere throughout the ground. So, second note to self, those noise-cancelling headphones, they're not going to pack themselves. Almost immediately, it seems, the players are on the pitch. They're readying themselves for the match. It's suddenly all very exciting. And then they play. Well, it's an approximation of playing anyway. It doesn't really look like anything has changed under the new manager. We're just as disjointed, struggling in defence, not really making any meaningful chances. Oh, and the refereeing decisions continue to go against us. Now, I'm not a football pundit, but even I can see we're struggling. And when Delhi, Tottenham legend, appears under the famous cockerel at half-time, we're lucky to be level. When the second half kicks off, it's in much the same vein as the first. And, well, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. These pictures only really need to be worth one, and it's not one I'd use on this video. Another side note. Some bright spark thought bringing a flare into the ground would be a good idea. How they got it past security, I will never know. I was worried enough that they wouldn't let me bring in my blood testing kit. By 80 minutes, Ben is begging to be put out of his misery. And by the time the game limps to its end, an utter defeat, most of the fans have already fled the stadium. leaving it a shell of its once glorious self. We leave disappointed. It's been a long day, a good one in parts, but the end, oh. And we still have a long old journey back to Sunderland ahead of us. So, a win might have made all of that a bit more tolerable. But, as someone once said, you can't win them all. And as a Spurs fan, that is definitely a sentiment you can easily agree with.